My youngest son just started grade 4, which means more homework. And it's time for a desk. So I figured why not incorporate some live edge walnut and his name CNC'd into it for his first desk. This is what I came up with. Anytime I work on a project that gets painted, I like to use poplar. It paints up really nice. Maple is also another choice. It's harder wood. This piece that I'm using is 10 feet long and 2 inches thick. Now, I don't use a jigsaw a ton at all, but this is definitely a good use for it. Next up, it's the bandsaw, and of course, it's the wrong blade. And I have no idea what this is in the saw. The maximum blade I can put in my bandsaw is 1/2 inch, and it works fine for this. To get these legs perfectly square, I run them first through my jointer and then it's off to the planer to get the correct thickness. For the sides, the back, and the drawers, I use 3/4 inch birch plywood. I'm spending a bit of time now to get these pieces rough cut. I find when I'm cutting softwoods or hardwoods, the cleanest cut usually comes from my miter gauge and a 0 clearance insert on my table saw. A miter sled works too. Of course, if you don't have either one of these, a miter saw works well too. Each leg gets 2 tapers. Setting them up is pretty easy. I measure up and then over and then connect the dots. Now, as for doing the taper itself, it can be done using a jig like this one, or a simple cut on the bandsaw, and then cleaning up with a sander works too. Take it from me, it's very important. Mark your work. I don't do it sometimes, and then I end up messing up, and then I end up getting kind of bad. Dominoes work, but so does a doweling jig, or even screws through the ends and then plugging the holes. This is the only edge of the plywood that will be seen in this part of the table. So what I do is fire up the iron and use some iron-on edge banding. I always like to do a quick little sanding before assembly. It saves in the end. Dry fit looks good. And the moment of truth, my friends, it's glue up time. It's great to have you along watching my video. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and please subscribe. So this part of the project is a little bit more labor intensive. I'm building a secondary box inside the frame of the desk to house the drawers. But since the live edge walnut is thicker on one side than it is the other, I have to build the boxes 2 different sizes. I'm doing some more iron-on edge banding. This is more plywood that could be visible with the eye. Now that I have all this figured out, it's time to assemble the inner part of the desk frame. Now, since the desk has 2 different sides that the drawers are going to fit into, I need to use some math here. I'm using glue and pocket holes to assemble these drawers. And how about this iron siding number 3? Onto the fronts, I'm rough cutting them on the table saw and then figuring out the correct spacing on the top, bottom, and sides. It's all in the details on this desk. I'm adding some trim to the sides and back, again made of poplar. All right, it's on to the top. Now, this was a huge piece of live edge walnut I scored. By no means is this the fanciest flattening jig you'll ever see, but it really doesn't have to be to get some great results. You do need a dead flat and level table to put the slab on, and the rails have to be the same height. I'm using my track saw to rip it down to width. And I'm doing a CNC carve with my son's name, and I'm going to fill it with blue epoxy. I decided at the very end to add this piece to the desk. This is actually an offcut from it that will have holes to put pencils and markers in it, plus an outlet USB bar. And it's time for sanding, sanding, and more sanding. When I make drawer boxes, I like to protect them using poly. This is a water-based poly. It dries really quick. Give it a sanding in between coats. For the walnut top, I'm using Odie's oil. Look at that walnut pop, my friends. As for the paint, I'm using a furniture and cabinet primer paint combo. I spray on the first coat, sand to 220 between those two coats, and there are two more after that for a total of 3 coats. This is just going to be a quick look at how I install drawers. I'll link to my workbench build video where I have more detail on how I do it. I'm going to use some Z-clips to install my walnut top, and I get the slot by using my biscuit joiner.